January 3rd, 2026. A day that will be remembered in history. U.S. military forces launched a precision strike on Caracas, Venezuela. Target: President Nicolas Maduro. Within hours, he was in American custody, being flown out of his own country on a U.S. military aircraft. But here's what nobody saw coming. President Trump didn't just remove a dictator. He announced to the world, live on Fox News, that America is taking Venezuela's oil. Not partnering, not investing. Taking control. 303 billion barrels of oil. The largest reserves on planet Earth. More than Saudi Arabia. More than Iran. More than Russia. All sitting there waiting, and Trump just made his move. But wait, there's something else happening here that the mainstream media isn't connecting. Just 3 weeks ago, the Epstein files dropped. Trump's name, plastered all over those documents, photos, emails, allegations. And now suddenly, we're invading an oil-rich nation? Coincidence? Maybe. Distraction? Possibly. Strategic masterstroke? That's what we're about to find out. By the end of this video, you'll understand the real game being played here. The oil, the timing, the Epstein connection, and what this means for America's future. This isn't just another news story. This is a chess move that could reshape global power for decades. Let's break it down. So let's talk about what actually went down on January 3rd. Because this operation was unlike anything we've seen in modern American history. U.S. forces didn't just conduct an airstrike. They didn't just take out military targets. They went straight for the man himself, Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela. Swift, surgical, decisive. And here's where it gets wild. Trump didn't try to hide it. No classified briefings. No anonymous sources. He went on Fox News and basically said, yeah, we did it. And here's what's happening next. His exact words: we're going to be very strongly involved in Venezuela's oil industry. We're going to have our very large United States oil companies go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, and start making money for the country. Read that again. The President of the United States just announced that American companies are taking over another sovereign nation's oil industry. Out loud, on television. Like it's a business deal. Now, before you think this is just about removing another bad guy, let's be real about Maduro. This dude destroyed one of the richest countries in Latin America. Under his rule since 2013, Venezuela went from prosperity to complete collapse. We're talking hyperinflation in the millions of percent, 7 million people fleeing the country. A nation sitting on the world's largest oil reserves, yet people couldn't even buy bread. Elections rigged. Opposition leaders jailed or killed. International sanctions from nearly every Western nation. Maduro was a dictator in every sense of the word. But here's the thing, and pay attention because this is crucial. Trump didn't just say, we're removing a dictator to help the Venezuelan people. He said the quiet part out loud. He mentioned the oil, not once, not twice, multiple times. He made it crystal clear what this is really about. Which brings us to the elephant in the room. Or should I say the black gold in the ground. Alright, buckle up because these numbers are absolutely insane. Venezuela doesn't just have a lot of oil. Venezuela has more oil than any other country on Earth. Period. 303 billion barrels. Let me put that in perspective for you. Saudi Arabia, the place everyone thinks of when they hear oil, has 267 billion barrels. Venezuela beats them. Iran? 209 billion. Canada? 163 billion. And the United States? We've got just 45 billion barrels. Venezuela has more than 5 times what America has. They control 18% of all the oil on this entire planet. One country. 1/5 of global oil reserves. And here's the kicker, most of it is sitting in the Orinoco Belt, one of the largest hydrocarbon deposits ever discovered. We're talking about a founding member of OPEC, right there alongside Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Iraq, and Iran. Venezuela has been a major player in the oil game since the beginning. But here's where the story gets crazy. This isn't your standard crude oil. Venezuela's got what they call extra heavy crude. Think thick, viscous, almost like tar. It's expensive to extract. It's expensive to refine. You need specialized equipment and refineries that most countries don't have. But if you can process it, it's perfect for diesel, asphalt, and industrial fuels, the exact products that are in short supply around the world right now. Now check this out. Back in the 1970s, Venezuela was pumping 3.5 million barrels per day. That was over 7% of all global oil production. They were an absolute powerhouse, by 2024? Just 1.1 million barrels per day. Less than 1% of global output. What the hell happened? How do you go from being a top producer to barely producing anything when you re-sitting on the world's largest reserves? The answer: catastrophic mismanagement. Hugo Chavez and then Maduro ran the country into the ground. Underinvestment in infrastructure. They fired thousands of technical experts, the people who actually knew how to run the oil operations. U.S. sanctions blocked the technology and investment they desperately needed. Corruption was rampant. The entire system collapsed. Get this: Venezuela was making $90 billion a year from oil exports. By 2020, that number dropped to just $2.3 billion. The infrastructure is so broken that for the first time in a century, there were literally zero rigs searching for oil in Venezuela. Zero. And that's when Trump saw his opening. So why does Trump want Venezuela so badly? He's not even trying to be subtle about it. He literally said American oil companies are going in to make money for the country. But let's break down the real strategic reasons behind this move. First, location, location, location. Venezuela is right in America's backyard. We're not talking about shipping oil halfway across the world from the Middle East. This is close. Shipping costs are way lower. Supply lines are secure. If something goes wrong globally, we don't have to worry about hostile nations blocking shipping routes. Second, the type of oil matters. The U.S. produces tons of light crude, which is great for making gasoline. But Venezuela's heavy crude? That's what you need for diesel and industrial products. American refineries need both types to operate at full capacity. We've been buying heavy crude from other countries for years. Now Trump wants to control the source. Third, there's a global diesel shortage happening right now. Partly because of the sanctions on Venezuelan oil. If we can tap into those reserves, we could ease that shortage and control one of the most critical fuel markets in the world. Fourth, strategic dominance. For decades, Venezuela's oil went to the U.S. Then Maduro got into power, sanctions kicked in, and guess who became their main buyer? China. Trump absolutely hates that. He wants to cut China out and bring that oil back under American control. And finally, Trump's whole brand is American energy dominance. This isn't just about energy independence anymore. This is about controlling global energy markets. If U.S. companies control Venezuelan oil, we're talking about reshaping the entire geopolitical landscape. Energy analyst Bob McNally told CNN the impact would be modest unless social unrest occurs, adding that the key question is how quickly could a Venezuela that is pro-U.S. increase its production. Experts point to historical examples like Libya and Iraq where regime changes didn't lead to rapid oil production recovery. Venezuela's infrastructure is so degraded that even with massive investment, it could take years to restore production to peak levels. But there's another layer to this story that many people are whispering about but few are addressing directly. Now we need to talk about something uncomfortable but relevant to understanding. Trump's motivations, the Jeffrey Epstein files. In December 2025, the Justice Department released thousands of documents related to Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender who died in federal custody in 2019. The release came after bipartisan pressure from Congress, and Trump ultimately signed the Epstein Files Transparency Act in November 2025, though he initially resisted it. What's in these files? Trump's name appears frequently. The documents include photos of Trump with Epstein at various social events, emails where Epstein discussed Trump spending hours at his house with alleged trafficking victims, a 2019 message where Epstein wrote that Trump knew about the girls and had asked Ghislaine Maxwell to stop. A birthday book with a lewd drawing apparently signed by Trump, though Trump denies this is authentic, and a 2017 email where Epstein called Trump some very bad people, none as bad as Trump, not one decent cell in his body. It's important to be clear. Trump has never been charged with any crimes related to Epstein, and the Justice Department stated they found no evidence of blackmail or evidence that would lead to new charges against anyone. Trump has consistently said he knew Epstein socially in the 1990s but had a falling out years before Epstein's sex crimes became public. Trump's administration claims the file release proves their transparency. However, some critics have pointed out inconsistencies in the redactions and questioned why some names are heavily redacted while others aren't. Democrats like Senator Mark Warner criticized Trump for not releasing the full files within the 30-day deadline as required by law. So why does this matter for Venezuela? Some analysts and commentators have suggested, and this is speculative, that Trump's aggressive foreign policy moves, including the Venezuela operation, could serve as a distraction from negative press around the Epstein files. When damaging information is in the news cycle, major military operations and geopolitical moves can shift public attention. It's also worth noting that Trump has been under significant political pressure from these revelations. Is this why Trump moved on Venezuela? We can't know for certain. Correlation isn't causation. But the timing conducting a major military operation, just weeks after controversial file releases, has raised eyebrows among some observers. What we can say definitively is this: the Venezuela operation serves multiple purposes for Trump energy strategy, geopolitical positioning, and yes, potentially dominating the news cycle at a strategic moment. The international response has been mixed and complicated. Critics include many Latin American countries that have condemned the operation as U.S. imperialism. China, which had become Venezuela's main oil customer, has called it an illegal intervention. Russia, which had investment partnerships with Venezuela's oil company PDVSA, has protested. The UN Secretary-General has called for restraint and dialogue. Human rights organizations worry about civilian casualties and international law violations. Supporters include Venezuelan opposition groups who opposed Maduro and have cautiously welcomed the move. Some U.S. allies support regime change but question the methods. Oil industry executives are watching closely to see investment opportunities. The legal question is complex. Under international law, military intervention in another country, without UN Security Council authorization or clear self-defense justification, is controversial. Trump's administration argues they're responding to humanitarian crisis, drug trafficking, and protecting American interests. But the explicit mention of taking control of oil reserves makes this different from typical humanitarian interventions. It's reminiscent of accusations made during the Iraq War that oil was a primary motivator. The response inside Venezuela is divided. Maduro had opponents who suffered under economic collapse and political repression. But there's also nationalist sentiment against foreign intervention. Many Venezuelans are simply exhausted after years of crisis and just want stability and prosperity, regardless of who provides it. So where does this go from here? In the short term, we'll see interim government establishment in Venezuela, security operations to stabilize the country, assessment of oil infrastructure by U.S. companies, and international diplomatic negotiations. In the medium term, major investment in oil production with billions of dollars involved. Chevron, ExxonMobil, and other U.S. oil giants are likely to take major roles. We'll see rebuilding of refineries, pipelines, and extraction facilities, and potential lifting of sanctions to allow legal oil exports. Long-term, there are different scenarios. The optimistic view is that Venezuela's oil production increases back toward historic levels. Economic recovery benefits Venezuelan people. A stable democratic government emerges, and the U.S. secures reliable oil supply close to home. The pessimistic view includes prolonged instability and insurgency. American companies extracting resources while Venezuelans see little benefit. Anti-American sentiment growing throughout Latin America. And expensive, extended-use military commitment. The realistic assessment is this: experts point to Iraq and Libya as cautionary tales. Regime change is the easy part. Building stable, prosperous societies is incredibly difficult. Venezuela's oil infrastructure is so degraded that even with massive investment, it could take 5 to 10 years to significantly boost production. France 24 reported that analysts warn recovery is unlikely to be rapid and that historical precedents in Libya and Iraq suggest this will be a long process. Energy analysts suggest the impact on global oil prices will be modest in the short term. Venezuela currently only produces about 1 million barrels daily, not enough to significantly move global markets. But if production can be restored to 3+ million barrels daily over several years, it could ease supply concerns and provide leverage over OPEC. So let's bring it all together. Why did Trump move on Venezuela? The official story is to remove a dictator, liberate an oppressed people, secure American energy interests, and rebuild a failed state. The oil reality is that Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, 303 billion barrels. For an administration focused on energy dominance, this is an irresistible strategic asset. The timing question is significant. Coming weeks after controversial Epstein file releases that included Trump's name and connections, some observers note the convenient shift in news coverage. The bottom line is that it's likely all of the above. Foreign policy is rarely driven by single motivations. Trump sees economic opportunity, strategic advantage, and yes, possibly political benefit from a dramatic show of American power. Whether this operation ultimately helps or hurts the Venezuelan people, stabilizes or destabilizes the region, and succeeds or fails in reviving oil production, only time will tell. What as certain is this? American foreign policy in Latin America just took its most dramatic turn in decades, and we're all going to be living with the consequences for years to come. What do you think? Was this the right move? Is oil the real reason? Let me know in the comments below. Before you go, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the Venezuela situation and want more in-depth analysis of the events shaping our world, make sure to subscribe to Vault Timelines and hit that like button. I'll be following this story closely with more updates coming soon. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.